I'm JJ Thompson with Rook, and we're here today to talk about some of the challenges that clinical support teams inside of a healthcare environment have associated with managing clinical systems to FDA compliance while still trying to protect the patient information on those devices. This is a challenge that can be, quite frankly, almost overwhelming to healthcare organizations and the teams that support the clinical systems. And there's a few components to this. The first is that clinical teams usually have been trained by vendors to raise the red flag and say, hey, according to FDA, we can't touch this system. There's actually a pretty lengthy process behind this that has to do with certain changes that are allowed to be made based on FDA guidance, the process for doing that with 501(k) forms and some other forms that have to be submitted by the vendor and manufacturer to the FDA associated with any changes that are made there. And that's actually not necessarily in scope for what we're talking about. And the reason for that is that the clinical teams that are faced with these challenges probably don't have insight into those challenges and how to actually overcome them when managing the vendor. Now, what's important though to understand is that the vendor is in turn in a situation where they're actually placing most of their risk back on the healthcare group, because it's not in their best interest to try to stay on top of the patching challenges and the testing challenges that they would experience if they wanted to make sure that you had a secure and compliant system. Now, the ways to deal with this are not easy. The first is that you can try to address some of these challenges through contracts. You need to get and partner with the individuals in your organization who are focused on the contracts for maintenance as well as procurement of these systems, and try to make sure that they state up front that you have the capability to implement whatever antivirus has been approved by that vendor or to do certain patches for the operating system within a certain amount of time. Additionally, you want to make sure that there aren't any gotchas in the contract where you actually have to purchase maintenance contracts to even have the right to not be out of warranty if you do any patching or apply any antivirus on that system. The other thing that you can do is to actually identify other compensating controls in the organization to handle this risk. So if you do have some of those patient care systems that you can't touch and truly can't touch based on the vendor and FDA guidance, then you're going to want to try to put other solutions around them, such as an endpoint unified threat management, use network segmentation, and other technical components that will be discussed in another section to handle some of those threats. Additionally, you'd want to look at bucketing your clinical devices into systems and maybe look at a zoned infrastructure that can be used to better help you manage certain levels of security and make sure that your other teams don't end up compromising the integrity of that FDA accredited system. So here's a few tips for you. We're committed to delivering what matters from the Rook perspective, and you can always find out more information on what matters at rookconsulting.com in the Insights section of our blog.